Good morning. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Tom.
And I'm Darlene Rempel.
And it's Wednesday and we have our cup of coffee. Remember, it's Grief Talk. This is where we share about lessons learned through life and loss. It's been a great theme. It's been so powerful to just share stories that heal. We want to say thank you so much for all our friends, family, people who've been watching and sending us messages about how the stories are changing their lives and asking all the questions. So we want to say thank you. Right, Darlene?
Yes, thank you. And if you haven't listened to our podcast, go back and listen to the stories. We've had some great stories just about people's resilience, how they work through loss. They're amazing.
Yes, and if it's something you'd like to hear, remember our podcast and our Grief Cafe. We've all talked about. We'll all experience more than 40 losses in our lives. So when we talk about loss, we're not just talking loss of a loved one, but we're talking about the other 40 losses. Like last week, we had our friend sharing about loss of health. And today we have a gift of listening to another guest of a different kind of loss. So throughout the year, we'll try and cover all the losses so that we know all the emotions, all the emotional things that come out. It doesn't matter which loss. When we experience loss, we grieve. Yeah. Because grief is a natural reaction to loss. So just super excited. I think last week I shared, I am in this group that I'm super, super thankful and blessed to be part of, and it's called Ultra Group. And my friend Toni is part of the Ultra Group. She's a superpower. I just love how she shows up, and she has taken the time to come to our here and visit with us and have tea with us and do all the things with us and share her powerful story. So I'm not going to say very much about her. We're just going to learn everything from Toni. Please welcome Toni. Hi, Toni.
Hey.
Welcome to Grief Talk Café. We're super excited and humbled for you to agree to come and share your story with us. Stories.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
I agree.
And you're tuning in from San Diego. Oh, I love that so much. Anyway, because I can just go through the rabbit hole of other stories. Darlene keeps me grounded, keeps me on task. Jen, let's go. So I'll let Darlene ask the first question and then let's just visit, have coffee. If you're out there and you'd love to hear stories that heal, please invite a friend, share our information, and we'll be talking today to Toni.
Well, yes, Toni, why don't you just introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about, I know you were talking about some of your loss as a foster mom. So maybe just share a little bit about how your life was, how foster care has impacted your life.
Ooh, okay. So I have a PhD in neuroscience, and I completed that work and then decided that I really wanted to be a parent. And we talked through all of our different options and decided that it made sense to be foster parents. You know, there are kids who need adults, there are adults who need kids. Ideally, theoretically, it's a great match. So we went through the process and we got our first kiddo, and she was already moving into our house, and I had my first meeting with her therapist, and the therapist goes, I see that you're bonding really well and you're having a lot of fun and she really likes you. And I'm like, yeah, everything's going great. And the therapist goes, you know, she has reactive attachment disorder, right? And I was like, what? And then she was like, you know what that means, right? And I was like, I've heard the term. And that was the end of our discussion.
Wow.
And I can't emphasize enough, like, how deeply I wanted to be a mom. that raising of a child is like the biggest calling I think most people can have. There are lots of huge callings and they're all incredibly important, but I think being a parent and making it something of value and importance to you and taking it seriously is a gift, a multi-generational gift. And so it would not be wrong to say I even desperately wanted to be a mom. And when you have high emotion situations and you have the difficulties that come with a child being taken away from their family and then placed in different homes. And my kiddo was 10, and she had been placed in many homes and different institutions by the time she came to me. And the situation that they found her in was one that would be in the news or a movie could be made out of. This wasn't like, there was nothing about her life that was ideal. She had horribly been through the ringer. Like, her parents should be in jail, in my opinion. But to put someone, an adult, in a relationship with a child, when the adult desperately wants connection and the child responds to connection with reactivity, it is not a healthy situation. It's not a positive outcome for the adult or the child. And unfortunately, it's very, very difficult for someone entering the system for the first time to understand these are the things that I need to look out for. This is how I protect my potential child and myself. I didn't have that knowledge base. And so after 3 months, she was so violent with me for hours a day that I tried to go to work one day and my mom came over to babysit, and she ended up getting violent with both my mom and myself. And we called all of our support people. We called every social worker we had contact with. I called my spouse. I called everybody. And they all said, oh, we're too busy. We can't handle. And I'm like, we're literally in crisis mode. This is the emergency, this is when chips are down and things need to happen. And my mom was injured and I was getting injured. And at one point I was walking away from her just to try, I keep walking away. She keeps coming after me. It's not like I'm doing anything to warrant, I'm literally walking away. She's literally coming after me. And at one point we're in the kitchen and my mom, am I allowed to cuss on here?
You can do, you be.
Okay.
You just be.
Okay. So I'm in the kitchen because our kitchen is sort of like a circle. Like there's a middle section and you can walk around. And so I was like, okay, if I just keep walking in a circle, she's going to have a hard time cornering me. And then hopefully she'll calm down. So I'm going in the circle around the kitchen and my mom goes, what the fuck are you doing? She's going to kill you. Get the fuck out of the kitchen. And my mom doesn't generally talk like that. So the fear that was clearly gripping her in that moment was significant. And it was the first time, because she had been attacking me. And the research for reactive attachment disorder says, and we can talk about how I respond to this now as someone with experience, says that in order to heal reactive attachment disorder, they have to be in an attached relationship. That they have to be in a stable, loving home. And so I saw that research and I was like, okay, that's it. I will die taking care of this child. This child will not leave my home until they are older than 18 and they can take care of themselves. And if that means that I die along the way, so be it. That is the decision that I had made. But hearing my mom, first of all, get hurt And then second of all, yell like that was a huge wake up call. And so finally, one of the social workers called back and said, well, your only option is call 911. So here I am, an educated person who deeply wants to do anything I can to help this child, who now is in such a stressful situation, is being told by her biggest support people, well, we can't do anything for you. You have to call 911. Which is like the definition of the worst thing you can do to a foster child, right? Calling the police on a 10-year-old, like that is horrendous. And quite honestly, the only reason why I'm not crying about it right now is because I've been in therapy for 5 years now over it. And I have a coach that specializes in trauma and have been working with her. And this last year, I traveled to 9 different countries and worked on my physical health and really just put my mental health forward because I know there's more that I can do to help this situation as a PhD neuroscientist, as a researcher. I think I can get back into that field and start making a difference, but I can't do it until I'm mentally healthy. So it's taken a ton of work. So I called 911. That was the option that our social worker gave us. And I just could not calm her down. I couldn't. I tried talking. I tried everything that I could think of, stuffies. There was no sound in the house other than what we were creating. It was a calm, hypothetically calm environment. Yeah, the police came. I told them that it was a mental health emergency. Luckily, they had we have specialty teams in California to help with mental health crises. So we got 1 police car. Well, we got 2 police cars, but one of them was specialized in mental health services, and the other one was typical police. And as soon as she saw them, she was just the cute, perfect, adorable 10-year-old. Just the cutest damn thing. And I felt like a horrible monster. Just like, I mean, who could do that to a child? Who could call 911 on a child like that? The amount of judgment was huge. And the police talked to her and they said, you know, like we could hear what was happening when you were on 911. Like, we know that she's behaving now, but we believe you, which was an incredible gift from them. And they took her to the hospital to be assessed. And the mental health services team did that. And while they were doing that, the other police officers stayed and talked to us. And to say that I was a mess is a huge understatement. I was sobbing to the point of not being able to breathe. They asked if I needed to be taken to the hospital. They asked my mom if I needed to be taken to the hospital. It was horrendous. And finally, when it was just the other 2 police officers, they turned off their cameras. There's so many things in this story that is not ideal, but it's reality. And
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in telling the reality of situations. So they turned off their cameras and said, look, this is a dangerous kid. And the reality is you aren't going to change her fast enough for you to be safe. Like, this situation isn't going to go away just because you want it to. And one of the police officers, the other one stood, like a silent partner, but the one who seemed to have more experience because his wife was in special education and worked with emotionally I've heard different terms, but kids who have emotional difficulties. And he said, we're just going to be back out. So, like, please, let her go. And it was heartbreaking on so many levels. Heartbreaking to see her hurt my mom. Heartbreaking to have the police say that. Heartbreaking to call for help from the people who are supposed to help you and nobody does. It's just so many levels of heartbreaking. And in the first, so they took her to the hospital. I called the group that we were fostering through and said, this isn't a safe situation. She can't come back here. And we had issues in cars before where she throws everything at me while I'm driving, which is actually the first situation that I brought up to people because I figured she was also in danger. Like, I was so embarrassed to say that I was in danger from a child, but it felt safer to say the child is endangering herself when she does this thing while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And the social worker literally laughed and said, well, that's so-and-so, and left it at that. And there was no support given. And the work that social workers have to do is incredibly difficult. This is not to say that, like, I think the system is incredibly difficult. Everything that the system is trying to accomplish is incredibly difficult. I think the research that is out there, and I've done a decent amount of work looking at the research now, is so based on ideals that it's not based in reality. And I don't think that's of service to people within these systems. I also, looking at reactive attachment disorder, I keep seeing researchers doing research on kids who are in Russian, what is it called? Institutions, who are generally there for the first few years until they get adopted out. And they do have a lot of difficulties with reactive attachment disorder as well. But I think it's very naive to assume that it's not happening here, that our own adults here are doing it to their own children. It's very rare, but to only look at institutionalized care, I think, is a huge mistake. It's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking on every level.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just for sharing your losses, right? From that wanting to be a mom to the trauma of what happened, and just even the loss of trust in the system and the people who are supposed to help you are huge losses. And I know it's a difficult place to be. Foster care is difficult. So thank you so much for sharing. And again, yeah, thank you. I don't know what else to say except thank you for sharing and bringing this up as as what do we do in our countries, right? In our very own backyards. It's not just, different countries. It's happening in our own backyards. And how do we prepare people? And how do we, for foster care? It's, yeah.
I love that, Toni. You said how your therapist has helped and a coach. That's huge. Like I always share here, I'm a big advocate for therapy. There's no shame about it because, like, even though I have kids and they struggle too, just like I struggle, and we all sign up for therapy.
Yeah.
and it's been life changing for us. So my
That's
question
awesome.
is, how else have you found healing in that? Because okay, let me just gather my thoughts. My first thing is that we all find this guilt that comes out when you have a loss. It doesn't matter which loss, we feel guilty. How have you dealt with that, and how do you deal with that, and what support have you found out there that helps you deal with that? And maybe you didn't feel it, I'm not sure. Just tell us about that. We call it the big G.
Yeah, right.
We call it the big G. Right? Yeah.
Oh no, it was the worst kind of guilt. Was like, it's totally gone. It's not totally gone. I think it's metamorphosized in a way that I've realized if I take care of myself, then I can be part of a field that's making change. And if I don't take care of myself, then I can't be a part of a field that's potentially going to make change. And I think that has been very empowering, but that's very recent. And it's been 4 years. How did I deal with the guilt? It really helped that my mom was there. And I had a friend who was coming over to hang out. And she was there when the police were there. And I think having that perspective has hugely helped, because the way that I was treating myself was just as like an immoral scumbag that didn't deserve anything in life anymore. And so having loved ones and trusted people around who saw enough of the experience that they were able to say, no, there really was a lot of violence in this situation. And you really did everything that you could to calm her down, and you weren't able to do it successfully. You really did call everybody in your support system and weren't able to get help. And you weren't the person to come up with the idea of 911. Which actually, looking back on it, is kind of crazy that I'd be willing to go that far to protect my child, whom I had for 3 months, and not go anywhere to protect myself. And that was a significant learning lesson for me. And building that respect for myself and that value in myself and my own life was a significant part of my journey. I wouldn't say I've totally gotten rid of my guilt.
And again, healing is a process, but was there kind of a aha moment where there was like a breakthrough in your healing where you're, one thing that kind of turned the page?
This last year, I went on a journey. It was a year-long journey. I traveled to 9 different countries. I did everything by myself with the idea that I'm building self-trust back. Um, I went camping and hiking by myself. I went on all kinds of adventures by myself. And it included going up to Canada and participating in a Sundance, which is a ceremony of the Dakota people. And that really came as a surprise. I've just been following my intuition this year to rebuild that connection. And it's taken me all over, and I've done all kinds of different things. And that particular ceremony is a healing ceremony. It's it was a life-changing experience for me.
Wow.
I would say that it allowed me to heal certain things and refocus on other things. And then I went, saw my coach, my trauma coach, and I actually had 2 different foster kids. And she walked me through why I didn't feel guilty about one and why I did feel guilty about another one. And it came down to feeling like I had made a positive change in one of their lives and not in the other. And in some ways, I think, even though I still don't feel like I made a positive change in her life, like talking it through again and having a different perspective really helped. And having an outsider hear my story and be willing to bestow forgiveness on me, which sounds really crazy, except that I couldn't bestow forgiveness on myself. And it felt like a real secret, like something not to be shared, because, you know, only horrible people do those things. And so I had categorized myself as a horrible person. And so now it's more like, it was a horrible situation, and I'm not a horrible person. But there's a lot of space for growth and change, both within myself and within the systems and within the research. And so I think spreading the imperfection around has kind of helped. And trying to be less fantasy about things and more living in the reality of how incredibly difficult these situations and these systems are. And that it's not ideal for really anyone. It's not ideal for the kids. It's not ideal for bio parents or foster parents or whatever. Even though we often share the stories about like the ideal foster adoption cases, you know, those are the ones that get the most media. Look how perfect this new family is, you know, that kind of thing. Really letting go of the perfection of what a family looks like, or how it feels. I still think about my kiddos every day. Like I will always be attached to them in one way or another, whether we ever interact again or not. And so I think physical labor was super helpful, doing something physically difficult, doing something, sorry, I'm totally in the shade now, doing something, the sun is moving, obviously. What? You guys didn't want awkward live photo, did you?
No, it's okay.
Doing things to rebuild my trust in myself, so that I could honestly look at myself and go, okay, you're not a horrendous person. You're a person who is in a difficult situation, and you listened to all the advice that you got and you did the best that you could. And then taking that with me around the world, which there's something very empowering about recognizing that you can take care of yourself. And not only that you can take care of yourself, but that you need to take care of yourself. That I had sort of hidden away from. I had put other people first. I had decided that I didn't matter. And so by going on this adventure, I was kind of forced to really rethink that, because the person who was going to save my life was me. The person who was going to make sure I had food on the table was me. The person that was going to make sure I safely traveled from one country to another was me. And that was really empowering to have that reconnect.
Yeah. That's amazing. So as we kind of draw to a close, what is one thing you would share if somebody was in the similar situation, or what's one thing you want to share to people who maybe are in foster care, maybe in some kind of the same situation as you were? What would you share with them? What do you want them to know?
I think being incredibly honest with what exactly is going on in your home. And I had an FFA, which is like an organization that helps the foster care system. And I think there is something incredibly important about having multiple connections within the foster care system. And if one connection isn't working, go to another one. And if that one isn't working, go to another one. And there is a lot of pressure on foster parents to be like the ideal parent who can save this child, especially in the types of situation that I was in. And I think that savior complex is very dangerous. I think it's dangerous for the adults to think that they can independently be a savior. And I also think it's very dangerous for the system to put that on parents. So instead, being just like so very honest, truthfully honest. And then if you don't get the help that you need, move on and get the help from somebody else. And question things, because social workers are just people too. They're doing the best that they can. And they have a ton of kiddos that they're managing. And so if one doesn't have the time, find another one. And just keep looking, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking.
Yeah.
Oh, Toni, I've been writing down all the notes. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so good. Just you sharing, like, really, thank you so much for sharing that, because that's a loss that we've never even talked about. And just listening to you, I can just from the heart, and how it took you from this journey of here, the kiddos, to the experience, to getting yourself back. Like, what a journey. Right? Like, it's almost like a process. And when someone is sharing a story, it sounds like this, but it is huge. Like, I could tell from your heart, it's huge. It's big for you. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for sharing that. That's big loss. My question, I'm just curious, where you at now and what are you working on now that you're rebuilding that connection and the self-trust back, where you're at, what are you working on? How can we support you, Toni? Like, really, this is deep.
Thank you. So I'm doing two things. One is I've decided to go back to a postdoc, which is a research position after you get your PhD, where I will be doing work on reactive attachment disorder or other forms of attachment. And my focus ideally will be on real practical, the real practical realities of the situation. And long-term adult outcomes for the children. Yeah, so that's part of it. And then the other part is I have a company called Expedition Personal Freedom, where I help people essentially go on the types of journey that I went on, to help them have those emotional releases, to rebuild self-trust. And they're anything from camping alone, but not really alone because I'm nearby, but you can't see me, like that kind of thing, building up the trust, to bigger adventures or just talking through what they want to do. But yeah.
Oh, Toni, that's so amazing. I love that. Like having the calling, like seriously, I've never heard of that term, reactive attachment disorder. First time. And like with your PhD and you being able to go back and study, like, can you imagine? That's why I love stories that heal. How many people will be helped by you going back, doing the research and offering those practical things, right? Like I wish you nothing but the very best because Toni, from your experience of pain, it's leading you to something that is bigger than all of us, and nobody will experience that pain. And then the second thing, Expedition Personal Freedom. I love it. I like to say this thing about sometimes anyway, with my background of my losses to being a funeral director to doing grief work, there is a story here where we are all shaped by our pain. However, we don't like to feel the pain. Like we don't want to suffer. Like, do not bring me that problem. But I'm starting to embrace that because it brings the calling. It brings the purpose. It saves lives. You're gonna save lives of people by just what you went through and you sharing your story. So I just have goosebumps. And all I can say is giving you a virtual hug. This is huge. And for our listeners who are listening, please let me know your thoughts. What I think is that embracing pain is okay because it will change lives. We get our callings from our pain. What do we say, darling? Our test is our testimony.
That's a great saying.
So thank you for sharing your test because it's going to be great. Toni will be following you. We want to follow you. We want to support you. And oh my goodness, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Darlene is so good at summarizing. I'll let her finish and summarize.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing light to the situation and speaking into it, because I know from even my own social work, this is such a huge topic about how do we help those kiddos without losing ourselves, right? How do we be that strong person, that strong system where we're helping and and we can't, it doesn't work every time. There's things, right, that can often be beyond us. But if we work as a community, right, if we have researchers like you who have had practical experience, it is so amazing. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for continuing on. Lots of people quit and go away and will not have anything to do with it. And so I just thank you for your courage and for, letting your personal story impact and finding healing and impacting others. So thank you so much, Toni.
Thank you for letting me share. It's taken years for me to be able to share publicly, and this is my first public talk on it. So I really greatly appreciate it.
Toni, thank you for sharing. I will be seeing you soon in one of our events, and I'll give you the biggest hug. And I just love something that just came up before we conclude is just the idea of when we keep secrets, like when we keep, like the way we're saying, people don't talk about it because I'm a bad human. But secrets do hurt us. Secrets
Yes.
makes us sick, right?
Mhm.
So I want to say thank you for doing this. This is the courage you took to share this, and we appreciate it so much, Toni. So
Thank you.
please don't forget to send us your link, how our friends can find you. Because we only had a short time to discuss this, but I would like to hear about how to take that 1 year and what you found in your journey. We want to follow you and learn, and camping alone. Like I'm not a camper, but I would love to hear. So we're gonna be in touch, and let's keep connected. Let's stay connected.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Thank you. Until next Wednesday, we'll all see you. Wasn't that amazing? I just love it so much. I just, it's so interesting, darling, when we bring our guests and they share their story. I love. And I always have to remember to listen to our guests with a heart, with ears. Because when we listen to the heart with ears, I'm just like, you feel the person sharing their story. I was actually watching you, and Darlene is a social worker, by the way, our friend. And I was like, is she trying to fix? She's gonna try and do something, say something. And you did so well, because we are also humans. We are here to listen to the heart of yours. And Toni's story, oh my gosh, right?
It touches us. And again, when we have a personal, I had lots of personal reactions being in some of the similar, but knowing what she's talking about. And so that's why it's so important, right? That I think those actually help us, though. It helps us have empathy. It helps us realize, right, that we can, somebody else can sit in our pain, and we can sit in somebody else's pain and listen. And that's so important. Yeah.
I love it. So until next Wednesday, please let us know. Send your comments. Check out Toni and the link and what she's doing. She's an amazing friend to follow, because this is deep stuff. Until next time, we just want to thank you for listening.